For startups hiring engineers and engineers looking to join them, this podcast is for you.
Hi, welcome to your next tech startup. Today is a now hiring episode. We are going to be discussing a remote anywhere role, senior software engineer, and we're going to be speaking with the CEO of Anyreach, Richard Lin. This role is the perfect fit for you if, number one, you are using AI tools out there to accelerate development while maintaining full ownership and understanding of the architecture. Two, spend your time coming up with elegant solutions, not boilerplate code. And three, are a product-minded engineer. You want to understand and solve communication challenges and think beyond a specific feature. So if that's you, please keep watching. Let's start with Richard. Tell us a bit about why you formed Anyreach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Just quick context for your audience. Anyreach is a omni-channel agentic AI platform. What that means is any business of any size, of any industry can create fully autonomous agents that can speak on the phone, email, SMS, and chat. They can also take action through API integrations, reading and writing to different tools, as well as web and Windows desktop agents that can essentially take over a device, authenticate, login, and also do the task on kind of different kind of tools. So why Anyreach and why did it get started? So originally, I actually had a different co-founding team working on, we were still working in AI voice, but for the e-commerce vertical around sales. The reason being for that is because I actually used to be an e-commerce founder, started a AI genetics company called Ombre Labs about 8 years ago. And in the early days of Ombre, if I could get a customer's phone number, I would call them. So I called probably 300 plus customers in the early days. And I converted probably 30 to 40% of those phone calls into buying a test kit.
Oh, wow.
But eventually that doesn't scale. So we had to go to Facebook ads and Google ads, which converted anywhere from 1 to 3%. And so I kind of had this thought when I came across AI voice, how do I replicate my founder-led sales experience, but give it to every single kind of e-commerce brand out there, right? Let's get the founder to sell every prospect. Well, it was a good idea. We closed a handful of pilots. A lot of the brands ended up having a whole bunch of requests from prompt engineering. I don't like how the agent sounded here. I don't like that I didn't pause long enough. I don't like how I pronounced this, and so on and so forth. And so it kind of resulted in becoming a kind of prompt engineering agency rather than building an actual platform. And so I kind of pivoted, but reached out to all the voice builders across Discord, Reddit, Hacker News, and said, hey, I've been building AI voice for the e-commerce space. Here's all the problems I'm running into getting this into production. Anyone else seeing the same? Went to sleep, woke up the next day, and my DMs exploded. Friends requests, hundreds of people all across the world were saying, hey, I'm building voice for legal, I'm building for healthcare, I'm building for this. And every single problem you mentioned is what we're running into. And it's actually where I met my co-founder, Karthik. So we met about 6 months ago. And he's been building AI voice for the past, I'd say 10 years since he could put his hands on a computer. And so quick background about my co-founder, Karthik. I came through CMU's master's program, studied under Dr. Black and Rudnick, who are the inventors of AI speech. Previously on the Alexa team, working on the transcription rescoring algorithm for finding your songs. So if you ever asked Alexa, hey, can you find a song that I like? You probably interacted with this algorithm.
Oh, yeah. Every day in my household with my kids.
Right, exactly. And believe it or not, it's not really AI. It's rules-based. So they had a whole development team building a bunch of skills within Alexa to do all that work. So it wasn't a real AI outside of the transcription. And so Karthik reached out to me and pretty much said, hey, totally hit the nail on the head with the problems. Love to connect with you. You have a great kind of go-to-market business side, marketing and so on and so forth with your last company. I know all the deep tech stuff. Let's date and see what happens. And obviously now we're married, so the rest is history. And so we kind of evolved from being vertical specific into more of a horizontal play where any business can actually, create their agents and so on and so forth. And we were able to do that because of some of the deep tech work that Karthik was doing on prior to us talking. So he was actually building a voice stack for about 6 months because he ran into so many problems deploying voice into production that he wanted to do a different method. And so what is that method and why is it different? Pretty much every agentic AI platform is a ton of prompt engineering. So kind of like how you would talk to GPT with your task, your identity, your role, your guardrails, you actually have to do all that and then some around voice because you have to hard code phonetics, for instance. So the way we pronounce Coke, AI might say Cokey. And you can imagine all the unstructured string of words like first and last names. And that's just on pronunciation. There's actually a lot of conversational nuance in the human conversation that we all take for granted, like emotional intelligence, brevity, and so on and so forth. That's all hard coded into the prompt. And that's just to make the agent sound okay. The other layer of complexity is around when you actually orchestrate action. And so you'll get these massive flow charts of if then statements. If conversation goes in this cluster, then look at the counter API for availability and speak back on it. And so depending on the complexity of an agent that you're trying to design, you might be writing 30 to 40 pages of prompts just as a first draft. And that's not even production grade ready. That's just like, okay, I think when I test it, 10 times, it's going to probably say the right things and maybe do the right actions. And so we've essentially built a platform on the model layer as well. So we actually fine tune our own models. We're not just kind of building pure software engineering, but we're also doing kind of R&D and ML work. That makes it so that you can take call recordings, so real human call recordings, successful outcomes with like closing a ticket, qualifying lead, or you can role play with AI. You as the top 1% rep can actually just clone how you talk. And we can clone the voice, the personality, the behaviors, and the patterns of a real individual with zero prompting. And so that's what makes our platform a little bit different than everybody else in the market.
Yeah, I don't understand how that's possible.
Well, I can talk a little bit about the nuances if you like.
Yeah, well, let's hop into kind of, for the engineers who would be joining, what technical challenges? I mean, I think you've gone into that, but like, first 3 months, like what is it that you really need them to be doing?
Yeah. So the way we think about our development team is kind of two areas. The first one is like pure software development. And then the second one is more machine learning R&D type work. Depending on the type of personality, one is sexier than the other. Because a lot of the ML R&D work is like you're just looking at, your model parameters and making adjustments there, which is not super fun. But on the software development side, all the customer facing applications, the backend logic, and so on and so forth. We've spent probably a good, I'd say 4 months architecting how to work with AI native tooling. So for instance, using Lovable to use AI to create the front end, using Cursor essentially for the back end, and we have a mix between AWS and Supabase for the database. But I think one of the challenges, at least from the software development side, is like how do you utilize those new AI native tooling to actually accelerate your work and build product very quickly? I think what we're starting to see is that all the maybe more domain specific, how do you write syntax for specific programming languages kind of being thrown out the window now because AI can actually fill that in. It's really about how do you, and this is kind of like to the role of a senior engineer. You'll see the difference between a senior engineer and a junior engineer. A junior engineer usually just jumps into the solution and just starts coding away. Whereas a senior engineer will sit down for maybe a week, really understand the problem, really understand how to architect, their code base and really plan that out before they start building. And I think that skill set of architecting, planning, and really understanding how to structure your code and deploy it in a scalable way is going to be a skill that's kind of be more sought after because AI kind of fills in all the junior task, if you will, of actually writing the code.
And now one thing I want to call out, because this, what you talked on, it goes a bit into engineering culture. And I've been hiring for startups for a decade. So the idea they're not going to be putting out code for a week and you're okay with that. When I talk to founders, you've got to be getting it out every day, like testing it, getting feedback, iterating, getting the next thing out. But and that's very like early stage startup typical environment, but potentially then the right person for you is someone who can be successful in a startup, but also can be successful in where like big tech, you're expected to spend a lot more time planning and thinking through things. So someone who can do both of those the right way is that kind of how your culture works?
Well, what I would say is even though not everything takes a week to plan, maybe some, take 1 or 2 days, but the planning is super important. But if you look at it from a long tail perspective, because of AI native tooling, even if you're delayed from the planning, the output's just going to be, significantly more in terms of volume of, velocity and so on and so forth, as well as quality. So even if you say for a sprint, right, you have 1 week where you're planning, that second week, you might be delivering 2 or 3 sprints worth of work. Okay. So the net is that you're still actually building more product than your traditional method, right? But if you're not
planning, I think that's a great thing to call out. Like when people are thinking about what makes this role unique, how does this team work? That is one of those pieces. Yeah. What are other things?
I would say general curiosity as well. Our software development team works pretty close in tandem with our R&D team. And so if there's curiosity and excitement and interest to learn parts of what ML takes and how to actually bring that from like the lab or academic into, a customer facing application, that's going to be key. So it's not really, our teams aren't really siloed, even though they're more specialized in a specific kind of function. So I think curiosity is going to be key. And that isn't just tying to like the operations of development because all these different toolings there's new tooling coming out, there's new updates to existing tooling that if you don't have curiosity, and how fast the space is moving, you got to keep essentially refreshing your skills and do it much faster than you traditionally would. So I think that's also a key piece in how we kind of think about the team.
Yeah. And then I would assume your interview process is going to really like look for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they necessarily have to have a high amount of detailed knowledge on all these different tools because even for us, it's kind of hard to, stay on top of. I think the first thing is like, do they have a first principles approach in their mental framework, if you will, how they think about problems? Are they able to break it down? Are they able to plan correctly? Are they able to clearly communicate their thought process? We'll say, hey, here's a, potential technical challenge, or here's a product feature. All right, we'll keep it high level, but it's like, how would you break apart this? What would be your mental framework and model to be able to come up with a solution? It doesn't necessarily have to be the right solution. We're not looking for accuracy in this regard. We're just looking at, can we see the linear logical path of how you got to it? We also, highly value folks that, when I mentioned the curiosity kind of talking point, that they've already played around with some of these AI native tooling. They can kind of speak on it. At least they know what it is. We've interviewed some certain engineers where it's like, do you know what Cursor is? And it's like, first time I'm hearing about it, I'm like, well, oh my goodness. Yeah. You got to give it the time. So, if they can speak on it from a high level, even better if they've already kind of done some passion projects on the side. Hey, I wanted to test out Cursor over the weekend and create this like app. It looks like garbage, but guess what? I tried it out, right? Yeah. That's very encouraging for us that we would want to kind of move forward. And then part of that interview process, after we've kind of vetted that out, we usually have a take-home assignment saying, hey, here's a very detailed spec of what we're trying to build. We want you to spend 4 hours using some of these agentic AI tooling for coding and whip up like a prototype, like full stack prototype. It doesn't necessarily have to be amazing, but yeah, go through the process. And then we want you to present to us like, how did you, what did you learn? How did you feel about it? What are some gaps with the current tooling and so on and so forth? So that's usually part of our process as well.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense in regards to your process because it's very aligned with focusing on what you're looking for in a role. Now, one of the things that I mentioned at the very beginning is that this is you can be anywhere role. You have how many engineers right now?
We have a 12-person engineering and R&D team.
Okay, and they're all over the world. Okay, so for this role, it's remote. There's just kind of you figure out the details around countries and taxes and all that stuff. One thing we haven't talked about is years of experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't say years of experience really matters too much. It's more about how they think and the output. We've seen potential and capabilities across the board, for folks that are maybe a little bit earlier in their career, but they're generally more curious of all the new tools out there. So they've been playing and dabbling in it. And obviously folks that have more experience have seen more of the kind of pitfalls or potholes in developing products. So there's benefits on both sides. But I think at the end of the day, first principles, mental frameworks, as well as the ability to be curious and kind of always in that growth mindset of trying to learn more and more is going to be key. If your audience is interested in how our team operates, how different folks work, how they think, we actually have our own podcast called Anyreach Roundtable on YouTube. We have a Meet the Team series where I've actually interviewed pretty much everybody on the product, engineering, and R&D sides.
Which is so unique and such an amazing way for someone who's interviewing. Like I watched some of the one with your co-founder, and he has like such a
bubbly personality.
He's such I'm like, oh, I would love to hang out with him. But I think as people are going through the process, that's a great opportunity. Listening, that's part of the doing the now hiring episodes is you get such a deeper feel for the opportunity when you're hearing someone talk about it and you're discussing things. Whereas when you read a line on a job description, it just doesn't give that to you. So, I mean, with this role, you can not only listen to Richard and this this episode, but as you move along with interviewing with the group, you have the opportunity to check out their channel and really get to know everybody in a way that would be incredible in making the decision if this is the right company for you to join.
And if I can leave one note on why we started that series, it's not just for folks to understand our team, but one of my growth strategies is actually to make everyone that feels comfortable and has consent to be thought leaders in their own respective regard and to build their own brand. Because, I don't want it just to be an Anyreach thing, but I want Karthik, my co-founder, or Makuth, my head of engineering, to actually start building their own brand on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And, I have a whole marketing suite, if you will, of people, product, and process that helps my team not have to do a lot of the legwork, but essentially using AI native tooling to help build more awareness, help build thought leadership, and actually create content for them as well, fully scalable. So that's also part of, what we do. Folks that
and I
join
want to call out with that, like I interview thousands and thousands of engineers, and oftentimes when I'm interviewing engineers to join a startup, one of the motivations to join a startup is one day I might want to be an entrepreneur. So what you just described right there is the opportunity for, an engineer to learn from you and grow in skills that a lot of engineers don't have. Like I always say that that marketing brain and that engineering brain typically don't live in one brain.
Right.
I think that is another thing that would make the opportunity with you guys incredible, not to mention that voice AI is huge opportunity in itself. So if people are interested in going further with the process, what is the best way to is it a job description on your website? What's the best way for them to kind of start contact?
Yeah, so you can send an email to careers@anyreach.ai. If you want to, talk to any of our folks on the R&D team, you can talk to Karthik, which is Karthik @anyreach.ai. And you can also email me, Richard@anyreach.ai. We're more than happy. We read all our emails. So
okay. And in that email, they should attach their resume, note that they're interested in the senior software engineer role. I highly recommend when you send that email, you say, these are 3 things that stood out to me in the episode. If you're reaching out to Karthik, watch the episode where Richard interviews him, note 3 things that stand out. But don't send a generic, I send this to 1,000 different companies that I want to work for. They're giving you their emails. That's super unique. Make sure that you are the right candidate. Highlight the things that, specific to the role that interest you, and then hopefully set up a call.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And best of luck with hiring.
Thanks.